What time is it? Let me check my watch. Oh, it's bone o'clock. In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Oh, why hello, stranger. I didn't see you come in there. Come, have a seat. Welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie Schwartz, and this lady sitting in this chair made of skulls and femurs
is Katelyn Hart. Hi, do you want a drink?
Some hot cocoa, maybe a cocktail,
a hot buttered rum, possibly. Yummy.
Yummy. Welcome to the show. This is the show where we talk about bones and bone-related topics. And
it is?
Yes. Rest your weary bones, stranger, because with us on the podcast today is no stranger to us, longtime stand-up comedian and first-generation clown school graduate, John Miller Giltner. Welcome.
Hi, John.
Hi, hello, everyone. My name is John Miller Giltner. I did my undergraduate at Juilliard.
That's where we all met.
Yeah, we all met at Juilliard, and I'm 6'1". I have, just to give a mental picture, I have blue and hazel eyes, and today I will be the role of the funny and agreeable podcast guest. So very excited.
Did you prepare contrasting monologues?
Yes, I did. My first monologue, I will be playing Willie Loman.
Oh, we're going Death of a Salesman.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of...
This is a funny podcast, though. So do you have something comedic for us today, John?
Yes, I do. Let me just think. Funny. What is funny?
Also Willie Loman, but every other line, I will be making a fart sound.
Ooh.
That's
what got you into Juilliard, I think.
Yeah, no, I did a experimental monologue where I was Willie Loman and Goodfellas and farting all the time, and they really loved it.
Well, your work is very avant-garde, but no joke, you are a legit clown. That is not a joke.
I say that we only did like 2 weeks of clown, which makes you feel like weirdly robbed when you go to a clown school and you're there for 2 years, but you only do 2 weeks on clown. Weird.
I mean, then why is it fucking called clown school? It should be called like neutral mask school, or I don't know. This is all very inside baseball, but it makes me sad to know that you didn't spend as much time clowning as I thought. I thought that the hallways of your school were littered with banana peels and you were constantly popping bubbles with a kind of childlike whimsy. But
like you had, in fact, to get into school, you had to fall every day. You had to like walk in the door and then face plant and then go hi.
And everyone would clap or say boo. And then they would throw the banana peels that they had slipped on at you just so you would fall again, maybe, or it's like clinking a glass at a wedding. They just throw banana peels at you if they want you to do something.
We know John from college, where they did a lot of stand-up and they did sketch comedy and improv, and they've been a big supporter of this podcast. And I had no idea
from day one.
Yeah, I had no idea that we shared this interest in true crime and in bones. When do you think you kind of like started liking those kind of creepier topics?
I think I got into it, and this might sound silly. I got into it because like it got to the point where I moved to Philadelphia and I had gone on I think I'd gone on like 10 dates with 10 different people, and they all listened to My Favorite Murder. And after a while, you start to take a hint that like, okay, well, maybe this is something I should get into if everybody I match with on Tinder is into true crime. I will say, and this sounds weird, I love true crime. I mainly come for the self-help.
I mean, you come to My Favorite Murder. Yeah, there is a good balance on that podcast of like helpful information that is both personal and, applies to the masses. I think what everybody realized from My Favorite Murder is that there are a lot of people that process bad things with humor, and including murder and death and destruction. So yeah, that podcast I feel like brought a lot of people into the true crime game.
Love Karen, love Georgia.
Yeah, yeah. So you were maybe a later in life arrival.
Yeah, I think I don't have I think it's weird because as I'm genderqueer, but as a male presenting person, I feel like I have a different relationship with true crime. I feel like there is the world is a much unsafer place for a woman. And so I think they process it. The way I put it is like, I was talking to someone one time and I was like, oh, I'm really afraid of like aliens and ghosts. And they were like, yeah, I'm afraid of getting murdered on the street.
Yeah, legit.
And then I realized as a male presenting white person, I have to make up things to be afraid of.
I mean, it's kind of true. Like,
wow. That is such an interesting perspective that I had not really thought of before. Thank you.
Yeah, me neither.
As a lady, just worried about my own death constantly. No, I'm not. I'm a happy person. Should we talk murder though?
I mean, perfect transition. You're gonna lead us off.
I might as well, because mine is sad and spooky. So I came to my topic through an article on mynorthwest.com, which was called 6 of the Most Haunted Places to Explore in Seattle and Tacoma.
Ooh.
Heard of it? My other sources were a really helpful article from historylink.org by Daryl McClary, an article from southsoundtalk.com, say that 69 times fast, and of course, Wikipedia. Okay, so I'm going to be telling y'all the story of serial killer Jake Bird. Ooh. And this is a serial killer that I had never heard of. What about you, John?
No, I'm excited though, very eager. Jake Bird is the name of I feel like Jake Bird's got a death toll though.
Very eager.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that it's funny to me for later in the podcast that his name is Jake Bird.
Yeah. I think that you're not gonna like Jake Bird, but like, here we go.
I'm strapped in to hate Jake Bird.
Okay, cool.
I already hate him. Fuck him. Fuck Jake.
Set his ass on fire. I don't have to know what he did.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm actually done with my story. So if anybody wants to go next.
Okay, John, kick it off. No.
All right, I just started. So I almost said Larry Bird. This is going great so far.
To be fair, Larry Bird did kill people on the basketball floor.
Is that what it's called? The basketball floor?
Yeah, the
court.
The bounce ball wood?
Okay. Jake Bird was born in Louisiana in 1901. And not much is known about his early life, although we know that around 19, he decided to go ride the rails of America and see the world or something.
Oh, that hobo life.
Stop.
Sorry.
Okay, well, no, I'm going to read a quote then, because of what you just said. Quote, Bird fit the bill as a stereotypical hobo, sneaking into train cars only to hop off once the train reached town. He would then trade a day's work for a night's sleep and a warm meal wherever he stopped, only to hop back on another train and start the process again. End quote.
The hobo life.
Yeah, stereotypically hobo, actually, according to this article.
Was there a bindle involved?
Maybe. So he might have done some work. Well, no, he did do some work on the railroad as a Gandy dancer. I just thought that was a fun job title. It's people that laid and maintained railroad tracks, because this was all kind of new. He had a lengthy criminal history, though, and he himself estimated that he had served about 15 years in various prisons for a lot of different, pretty serious crimes. And yet, in about sometime in 1947, he reaches the end of the line of the railroad tracks in the city of destiny, your favorite and mine, Tacoma, Washington.
For the listeners' context, Katelyn, John, and I all went to college in Tacoma, Washington. So we are quite familiar with the area.
So we are jumping ahead to the night before Halloween, 1947. Police officers were dispatched to 1007 South 21st Street, and they were responding to sounds of screaming from inside the house. And I just want you to know, I looked it up, and this crime scene is about 10 minutes from our college campus. So bravo to us. So the police show up, and John, did you like that?
Yeah, I'm having. I don't know what to say. I'm like, I always like. I don't want to be like, I'm having a great time hearing about this murder.
I'm having an absolute ball. Please tell me, what's the crime?
Yeah. Nobody knows what to say when I talk. No, I'm just kidding. God. Okay. So when the police arrive, they are greeted by a barefoot man who is running out of the backyard and crashing through a picket fence. A fight ensues. The perpetrator actually pulls out a knife and cuts one of the officer's hands and stabs another one in the hospital. Jesus Christ. Stabs the other one in the shoulder, and all of them had to go to the hospital. Jesus. Okay. Here's where it gets gnarly. So inside the house, the police find 52-year-old Bertha Klutt in her bedroom, dead, and that is adjacent to the kitchen. And her poor daughter, Beverly June Klutt, 17, was dead on the kitchen floor. Both of them had been killed with an axe, which was at the crime scene.
Ugh.
So, yeah. So pretty obvious who did it, right? He's there. So eventually he confesses that it was a random, he thought it'd be an easy burglary. And he brought the axe. He found it in a nearby shed. And I guess he said he was just going to use it to like scare somebody. Ding dong.
I'm sorry. That's my ding dong.
Turn it off, please. This is a class.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Miss Hart. Please don't send me to the principal's office. Please.
You get 12 demerits.
No, don't call my parents.
Yeah, I'm going to.
No.
So Jake Bird snuck into Bertha's bedroom and stole $1.50 from her purse. And I guess Bertha was standing behind him when he went out into the kitchen. And they started fighting, and he ended up murdering her with an axe. Definitely wasn't Bertha's fault. And he also murdered her 17-year-old daughter in the same way, like I said. So on Halloween 1947, Bird is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Bertha Klutt. And Klutt is spelled Kludt. So I don't know if I'm saying that right, but probably. And they only charged him with her death because, and this makes sense, but I just hadn't really thought of it, it was customary to only charge for one murder, just in case they messed up somehow, so they could charge her, or they could charge the criminal with the other crime and double, there would be
to avoid double jeopardy.
Yeah. So at this trial, Jake Bird pleads not guilty, and his defense attorney, whose last name is Selden requests a change of venue, saying that Bird couldn't get a fair trial in Tacoma because this was a pretty big media frenzy. The defense attorney tried to get reprieve because Jake Bird wanted to represent himself. But the judge denied both of these requests. No.
That's always the sign of a true just someone who's real fucked up is when they want to represent themselves. You're like, oh
yeah, Ted. I think Ted Bundy always. If I hear I want to defend myself, it's like you're Ted Bundy.
Did you want to say something, John? It looked like you were going to talk.
I'm just thinking. I have a lot of thoughts so far. I don't think I know the backstory. Sorry, I don't think I know the backstory of anyone from Louisiana. I think people from Louisiana, 1 through 10 is just lost for them. We don't know what happens there. I don't understand what economy existed where people could support themselves getting on a train and just going across country. I work a full-time job and can't even support myself. Sorry, mom and dad.
I mean, it's a hard.
It was
time
a different
right
time.
now.
It was the very early 1900s. You could live off of really nothing.
And then I don't understand these people who like they find an axe. Like, what is that? Like, what do you mean you just found an axe in a shed and then you came? Like, I feel like I feel like these serial killers, whenever they want to defend themselves, are always trying to like distance themselves. Like, oh, I just found this axe. You don't pick up an axe you just randomly found and not kill someone.
Wait,
Yeah,
did you say you don't randomly pick up an axe and then not kill someone?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go in here and do like a light burglary, and look, there's an axe right here. That just no, you're a bad guy.
No, you don't.
Okay,
I get it. So what? And I agree. So you don't bring an axe for fun. You don't bring an axe just for insurance. You bring an axe because you're going to go kill somebody.
It's like the kid at a baseball game who shows up with his own bat, but he's like, oh, I don't want to play. I'm just here to watch. But you brought your own bat. You clearly want to play the game.
Jeffrey, you did not make the team. I don't know why you keep coming to these games and sitting with the team.
So back to the trial. There were 1.5 days of testimony. It was determined and brought at trial that blood and brain tissue from both of the victims were on his clothes. Like, he fucking did it. There were bloody fingerprints of his in the house and on the axe, and he left his shoes there like an idiot.
Why did he take off his shoes?
To be quiet.
He probably like walked in and saw the shoes on the side of the thing and didn't want to be disrespectful. Oh, to be quiet. Never mind.
Be quiet.
Pardon me. This is a shoes off house. Let me. Don't want to fuck up the carpet.
So there was a surprise witness introduced by the state. One of the police officers that had arrested Jake Bird testified that he and another officer had beat Jake Bird when he was in their custody. And he signed his confession like right after this beating, which the cop testified to. So it happened. When the prosecutor moved this kind of probably coerced confession, although he did it obviously, into evidence, the defense attorney was like trying to get it thrown out because it had been obtained under duress, and the defense argued that it was inadmissible. But the judge disagreed, quote, ruling there was no relationship between the beating and Bird's voluntary confessions. Which, okay, and I put a note in here to like say, I think at this moment, two kind of opposing things are true at the same time. One truth is that Jake Bird is the murderer. The other truth is that even murderers shouldn't be beaten in police custody and probably shouldn't sign a confession right after a beating, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of like, it's the same I'm going to try to frame this correctly, but like the judge saying that the beating and the confession are not relatable, or like my parents saying that my abandonment issues and the way they raised me are not relatable.
Zing. But I think both of you are right that like two things can be true at the same time, but by beating this guy, they have like almost invalidated this confession, because like if you take out the beating, everything's fine. We like him confessing, we like him getting arrested, but it muddies the waters when you turn him into a hamburger with your fists.
Yeah.
We like nice, clean, straightforward justice, please.
If it's possible.
It
doesn't really happen, I don't think.
No, it never happens.
So this is interesting. So all of that, the confession was ruled admissible. The defense attorney rested his case without calling any witnesses to the stand. And so after deliberating for about 35 minutes, jurors came back and he's guilty of first-degree murder and he's going to get the death penalty. On December 6th, 1947, the judge sentenced Jake Bird to be hanged on January 16th, 1948. The defense attorney, of course, filed for a new motion and it was denied. But this guy Selden told the court, quote, he had done everything in his power to defend Byrd and that no further appeals would be made on Byrd's behalf. This is his defense attorney. And then this is a direct quote from Selden, quote, I feel whenever any man 45 years old gets an idea that no lives are safe to anyone except his own, that man is a detriment to society and should be obliterated. This is his defense attorney.
So
again, he's a murderer.
Yeah.
But, if you want a justice system in our country, everybody is entitled to a good defense. And it's hard to say because I believe, and everybody knows, Jake Byrd is a murderer. But if your own defense attorney thinks you should die, maybe he shouldn't be your defense attorney.
Yeah, I feel like that's stacking. I mean, like you said, he's a murderer and he should be found guilty and he should, all that stuff. But it is fucked up that,
And Jake Byrd is Black. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that because of how he was being treated by the justice system.
Initially, I thought it was like a clever defense attorney move that he called no witnesses. Like, I am calling no witnesses because there were no witnesses.
Right. No, he just called no witnesses because he didn't want his client to survive. He was pretty set that Jake Byrd was going to be executed and found guilty and then executed. I just thought this case brought up some interesting questions around legality and blah, blah, blah. But here's where I think the story gets buck wild. Jake Byrd, after telling the court, you wouldn't let me defend myself. My own lawyer just told you guys that he doesn't want me to survive. And he said, quote, I am putting the Jake Byrd hex on all of you who had anything to do with my being punished. Mark my words, you will die before I do. End quote.
So now he's a hobo witch?
Honestly,
no
goals.
Comments.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Shoot.
That's a powerful statement, though.
Okay, y'all. Do you think his hex worked?
Oh, I think it 100% worked.
Because you're telling us this story, I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, it did.
You're using context clues. I get it. And you're fucking right. The first one was the judge who sentenced him to death. He died of a heart attack. Byrd's defense lawyer was the next one to die. He also died of a heart attack. He's the guy, Selden, who gave him no defense at all. One of the police officers who recorded his confession, another heart attack. Another police officer involved in the case dies of a heart attack.
Jeez.
One of Byrd's prison guards dies of a heart attack. And last but not least, the court clerk dies of pneumonia.
Jeez.
That's six people associated with the case. And he was actually right. They died before he did. So like I said, the execution was scheduled for January 16th, 1948. But it sounds like basically on the way back from the trial or at some point, Jake Byrd starts talking. He claims that he committed about 44 murders over the course of his life. Mm-hmm. So he is trying to save his own life. So he says, I'll tell you all about it if you give me a reprieve. So the Washington governor gives him a 60-day reprieve so that police officers from other states can interview this guy. And they were able to substantiate 11 of the murders. And they think he knew so much about the other 33 that they're pretty sure he did all of the things he confessed to. In addition to his murders in Washington, he allegedly killed people in Florida, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. And he mostly killed them with an axe.
Damn. Same kind of MO of finding a local axe.
I guess so. He just would go from town to town. And of course, we know now that police departments didn't start talking to each other between the states until much later than this. So he just got away with a lot of shit for a lot of years. But with all of this, all of these confessions, and he kept trying to move his case up in the justice system. So he kept getting a reprieve from his execution. He actually was able to delay that execution by about a year and a half. But in the end, he is a murderer, and he was hanged on July 15th, 1949, and he is dead now. So that's my story.
That's fascinating.
Jake Bird, Tacoma serial killer.
Yeah.
It's also horrible. And whenever I hear about these weird things, and I know this is wrong, but I immediately think I need to get my natal chart read. Maybe there is something to this mysticism that I don't understand. Like, I need to understand my rising moon. I need to understand my, I don't like Sundance. I don't know the things. I need to buy crystals because the hex worked.
I need to buy crystals. The hex worked.
I don't know. It's a lot of old men died of heart attacks.
Yeah.
You know, it probably wasn't that uncommon. I'm not trying to be like callous or anything. I'm just saying, you know, or unsympathetic or whatever, but I'm just saying like a bunch of older men dying of heart attacks may be a coincidence, but 6 people associated with the case, I don't know. That's a lot of people.
Is it a hex or is it the prevalence of heart disease in America? We'll never know.
Who knows? Who knows? Everybody was probably smoking hella cigarettes in that courtroom too. So
yeah, and they're, you know, I just think it was funny because you were listing them off and it was like heart attack, heart attack, heart attack. I was like, this is.
Damn. I know, it's 5 out of 6 had a heart attack. It's yeah. I thought that case was interesting. It just brought a lot of different things to the table, twists and turns, as Georgia and Karen would say.
Twists and turns. That, you know, Katelyn, that story had everything.
Oh God. Let's move on. John, what have you brought to the bone table?
Okay. Well, I debated for a long time. I am from Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky queer, non-binary, but I have my roots in Appalachia. And at first I thought, I thought about snakes because I Googled, because I thought snakes are like the only animal that has no bones. And I Googled that. Turns out that's not true. Snakes have a ton of bones, but I thought that. I also, in the auto suggestion, came up with a wonderful snake fact. It answered questions for me that it came up on the Google. When I Googled, do snake have bones? It also came up with, can snake fart?
Asking the hard question.
Yeah.
Well,
and snake can fart. Snake can fart.
I think on this topic, I think I might have heard it on Bananas, but there's a spreadsheet somewhere of animals that do and don't fart. Like it's a spreadsheet of like all animals and whether or not they do or don't fart. But continue.
And if you take anything, yes. And if you take anything from my story, snake can fart.
Snake can fart. Got it.
However, I'm going to talk to you all about Christianity, our Lord and Savior. I have a very complicated relationship with this because I think it's funny, but it's also tragic and sad. I'm going to talk about Pentecostal snake preaching.
What?
And you might know this. Some of our the listeners might know what Pentecostal snake preaching is from the headline, Pentecostal snake preacher dies of snake bite.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
John, where are we going? I'm ready.
No, I'm buckled in. I'm in the back of the car. We're already halfway there. Please take us.
This is this is from National Geographic to give you all a picture. So dancing around the pulpit, Tyler Evans, whose family has handled serpents for 5 generations, held a Coke bottle with a flaming wick to his skin, a practice called handling fire. The teenager suffered no burns. Next, he took a swallow from a mason jar containing a mixture of water and strychnine. I can't pronounce it, but it's a bitter poison made famous in Agatha Christie novels.
Oh, strychnine?
Yeah, strychnine. He's drinking strychnine.
Oh my God.
Great. That's a bad way to go, too.
Yeah.
That's scary. Okay, continue. Sorry.
He let out nary a cough. This is what the National Geographic writer wrote. From a few feet away, Pastor Andrew Hamblin nodded in approval. On his arms dangled 2 venomous copperhead snakes, molted, brown, and tan.
What the fuck?
Oh my God.
So it is illegal, but there is a sect of Christianity in the Appalachian area of Tennessee and Kentucky that performs religious services holding venomous snakes. And they are adamant in their belief that God is telling them to pick up serpents, that if they were religious, nobody will get bit. And if they do get bit and die, it is their time to go.
Oh no.
How convenient.
Oh no.
If they get bit, they refuse medical attention.
No.
There's also, if you want to know more information about this, there's a reality TV show on it.
What is that called?
I think it's like Venomous Salvation or something like that.
Look it up right now. I will wait.
One pastor was named Jamie Coots, who I watched an episode of the show. And my favorite part about it is he got bit on the finger and he didn't seek any medical attention. And his finger slowly decayed until the bone appeared and fell off. Part of his finger just rotted away and fell off in the backyard. And then he quotes in the show that his wife picked it up and said, I want to keep this.
Oh.
And he said, why would you want to keep it? And his wife said, so I will always have a part of you.
Oh, no. Now that's sweet.
No, it's not. It's not. I hate it.
As someone who's anxious in relationships, I get it. I really vibe.
Sorry, I don't. Ew.
Excuse you, but don't you want a partner so committed to you that they will keep your necrotized finger?
The pastor, Jamie Coots, says that if anybody gets bit by a snake in his ministry, which is, from judging by the videos, like 10 people, they're handling snakes for like 10 people.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like roughly the size of a bar open mic.
Oh, no.
He says he will contact the medical authorities if they're not part of his immediate family and let them refuse service themselves.
Okay.
Oh, how generous.
So he'll just leave it to you to refuse the medical care, unless you're, one of his kids or part of his family, and then no medical care for you. Jesus shall help.
Exactly. And these people are dancing, they're jumping up and down. There's a video of like a guy rolling on the floor with serpents. And the reason I feel like it's okay to make fun of these people is they're not just putting themselves at harm, they're actually giving it to the people who worship them. And that leads me to the founder of this whole thing. He's not the first person. He's not the first person to do it, but this guy is buck wild. His name is George Went Hensley. And just from the Wikipedia about him, George told everyone he was from West Virginia and he had roots in Pennsylvania. But in reality, he lived in Hawkins County, Tennessee. Already starts off lying. He was a former coal miner and moonshiner, which was very common in those times.
Sure.
And he experienced a conversion while attending a Holiness Pentecostal Church of God service in Ottawa, Washington, or in Tennessee, led by led by a preacher's son. And he forsook alcohol, tobacco, and friendship with those he deemed worldly.
Okay, wait, what?
Get rid of all the smart people in your life and just focus on the snake people.
I can't be friends with Chad anymore because he did visit Mexico. So I'm gonna have to chop that relationship off at the root.
Much like the finger that decayed and died in Jamie Coots.
Exactly. This is a Jamie Coot finger situation. I will let him decay in my backyard and I won't let my wife pick him up.
I just want to give a little bit of foreshadowing. We'll see how much he forsook alcohol. All of this came from a passage in the Bible that's only a couple lines. The lines are, And the signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly things, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, they shall recover.
I feel like they're taking this so literally.
I know. And what's weird is it's kind of like about the same length of passage that Christians use to not justify gay marriage.
Well, I mean, we've seen
interesting parallel there.
Yeah.
Taking things out of context and blowing them way out of proportion.
Yes, although what looks like it actually happened with this guy is he just saw a snake handler as a kid. This is what psychologists think. He saw a snake handler as a kid and was like, that is sick. I want to do it. And I want to keep comparing this guy to an open mic prop comic because he is like the Pentecostal version of an open mic comedian with moderate success. Anyway, in a 1947 newspaper interview, he claimed to have seen a snake walking on the hill. This is how he justifies why he did it. He claimed...
Wait. Yeah, continue.
He claimed he had seen a snake while walking on a hill. He said that he knelt...
I thought that you said that. I think Katelyn and I had the same thought that he saw the snake walking, and we were just like, what?
No, just slithering on by.
Yeah.
No.
It's a vertical snake with tiny shoes.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
But this is his fan fiction. He was like walking one day on a hill and he saw a snake, and then he said he knelt in prayer and took hold of it. Then he brought it back to his church and told the congregation to also prove their salvation by holding the snake. So could you just imagine being that church? Like, yeah, I like this preacher. He's pretty good. He's pretty entertaining because that's the entertainment thing. And then he's like, take this snake. I found it outside.
Imagine if you are the person who decided to skip church just that Sunday. Then you come back the next Sunday and they're like, Maxine, you missed it. We're all about snakes now. Here, hold a snake. Oh, you weren't here last week?
Maxine, we are now serpent sisters.
I saw a snake walking and now we all love snakes.
At first, the Church of God did not object to his snake handling services. And in 1914, he actually held a snake handling meeting with Church of God bishops in Cleveland, Tennessee. This is all from Wikipedia. The next year, Hensley applied to be a license as a Church of God membership, but required his wife's assistance to complete the paperwork because I forgot to mention he's illiterate. So he's never read the Bible. He's just memorized.
My God.
He's just memorized a couple of verses and then claims he receives divine revelations while just grabbing snakes.
Well, I mean, it's not like you have to be literate to be religious and read the Bible. That's not why we're laughing. But like, to be so determined that you're right about 2 sentences about snakes. No, you have to know the whole story.
I'm still laughing about the guy busting into church with a snake in each hand going, listen up, guys. You got to hear what I'm all about.
And people were like, okay, I guess we're into it. God.
I like snakes.
It gets wilder. So in 1922, Hensley resigned from the Church of God, citing trouble in the home. Which
That's
is very... Yeah. And it said in the Wikipedia article, weirdly, his resignation marked the zenith of the practice of snake handling in the denomination. So I guess so Church of God has kind of separated himself from this. And remember this guy who gave up alcohol, he then separated from Amanda, his wife, around this time, possibly owing to his temper or drunkenness.
Yep.
Oof.
He was then arrested for moonshining.
Oh,
and I don't know if that's a past charge, but I want to be clear about something. This man was married 4 times and had 13 different kids.
Whoa.
8 by Amanda, 5 by Irene. It seems he can't hold a job. He's illiterate, and people speculated that he was a drunk.
I mean, this guy sounds nuts. He's running around. All he does is fuck, hold snakes, and pray to God and drink.
it weirdly sounds like, again, you know, as a budding open mic comedian, I can imagine the conversations we would have with his wife where he would be like, no, my ministry is going to take off. The Snake Act. People love the Snake Act. And she's like, I need a job. You need a job. We have 8 kids.
And I have a feeling that you're not done making them.
No. So he divorces Amanda, but he then marries Irene. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. So he gets arrested for moonshining, and he doesn't serve his sentence. He flees and evades recapture, possibly by hiding in the mountains near his sister's farm in Ottawa. While a fugitive, he may have been arrested and re-released on unrelated charges.
What the fuck? This guy!
He ultimately fled to Tennessee to his sister house in Ohio, where he met his second wife, Irene, who, like, their relationship seemed very tumultuous. And she was like, you need a job. And he's like, I want to be a snake handler in religion. Anyway, he's moving all over the place with Irene. They spend time in Virginia, Kentucky, Florida. And I'll be honest, he achieved some success. Like 500 people come to see him in Virginia.
I mean, honestly, if this is like, what is it, like 1914 or whatever, like 1915, if you came up to me and said, hey, there's a dude who's gonna handle snakes and he says that if they bite him, God will heal him, I'd be like, all right, I'm getting my giant feathered hat. We're gonna go watch this.
I'm putting on my cut this out. Never mind.
No, what is it you're putting on?
No, please say it.
I was gonna say like your bustle or your like you getting all your corset on, but then I remembered, no, that's a little late for corsets.
I'm putting on my tiny hat.
But never too late. I think I would also be interested in that if there was just zero entertainment ever, you know?
100%. Like, I do think this is the entertainment for the times is to see, and like Pentecostal worship services, they're speaking in tongues. It's a really entertaining. I feel bad because this is people's religion and they really believe it, but it is an entertaining thing to watch. There's a lot of dancing. There's a lot of music.
Probably a lot of people. Sorry. I was going to say a lot of people probably went there for a religious experience, and then they were like, "Who the fuck let the snakes in?"
Yeah.
If I didn't know too much about like science and stuff, and I saw a guy fucking handling a snake get bit by the snake and then be fine, I'd be like, holy shit. Does he have a point?
Legit. Yeah. I can see why people would have believed him. Yeah.
And I also like, one thing I would think that gets lost in how ridiculous it is that this guy is holding a snake is how unfair this is to the snake. Yes. And how cruel that, like, just imagine just being this poor snake is this like drunk moonshiner juiced up on the energy of 500 people all believing it, like, in the name of the God. And the snake's like, what? You took me out of my home and now I have to deal with this.
The snake is like, what's happening? I want to bite you, but I feel like that's what you want. I don't know. It's weird. You're making me feel weird about it.
I should say, up until this point, nobody has died at one of the services.
Well, good.
Cool. I think that's going to change, though.
It is. And you're going to start to realize what a piece of shit Hensley actually is.
Yes. I didn't think he was a great person. I'm just going to say that.
And I'm like, I don't think most historians would say that he's like a drunkard like I do, but it sounds like he's a drunkard who's like hopped up on all this, doing all this crazy shit with snakes. But so this is where it gets really hog wild. In 1936, this is from Wikipedia, in 1936, Hensley built a house on the back of a trailer truck. And this is like in 1936.
Oh my God.
So
we're not there yet.
That's not an
RV.
Home. Yeah.
I just picture a little log cabin like shaking. And he drove to Florida to hold revival services. There he's drawing like crowds of 700 people. He drives up to Georgia, and in Burrough County, Georgia, during a service, a young agricultural worker was bitten by the snake and became ill.
Yeah.
He would die.
Ooh. So somebody not in the church, it sounds like, just somebody maybe watching.
Yeah. Hensley spoke to reporters about it and claimed that the man was bitten because he was not quite ready for the demonstrations of the power.
Asshole.
Or yeah, he was not quite ready for the demonstrations of the power. He predicted the young man would miraculously recover. He did not.
No, he did not, because he was bit by a fucking snake.
Yeah, this was the first death by snake bite to occur at one of Hensley's services. He conducted the man's funeral and left the area for fear of prosecution. And I love this detail on Wikipedia. His conduct was condemned by a local newspaper.
I mean, yeah, but also he did the guy's funeral? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he did the guy's funeral who he killed.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
They didn't have somebody else to do it?
Yeah. And then he leaves, he gets divorced again. He continues to do snake handling services in Tennessee, in which he's arrested for doing it, but his congregation gets him out of it by them protesting. And then in 1946, Hensley married for the third time, but his wife, Inez Hutchinson, left him for less than after a year of marriage.
Good for her.
Yeah, no, great for her. She really dodged a bullet.
Dodge a snake bite.
After their separation, Hensley began to preach in Chattanooga. During services, he began to assert that he had been miraculously healed after being paralyzed for a year.
Oh, buddy, no.
That is so fucked up.
That's horrible.
There's no evidence that this happened, and it's disputed because he never took a year off of ministering.
Yeah, when was this supposed year, guy?
Now, this is where it gets really hog wild. How do you think this guy passes?
Snake bite.
Please let it be snake bite.
If you guessed a Korean war hero that saved thousands of lives, you'd be very wrong, because he totally died of a snake bite.
Oh my God.
In 1955, Hensley began a series of meetings near Altoona, Florida. He conducted meetings without snakes for about 3 weeks, and then he was like, I'm going to slip it in.
I think it's time to integrate the snakes.
Yeah. Several dozen people gathered at an abandoned blacksmith shop for the observation. During the service, Hensley loudly delivered a sermon on the topic of faith. He removed the snake from the lard can in which it was stored, wrapped it around his neck, and rubbed it on his face.
Oh, guy.
He walked around the audience with the snake and then returned the snake to a can. As he placed the snake into a can, it bit him on the wrist. A few minutes later, Hensley became visibly ill, experiencing severe pain, a discolored arm, and I don't know this word, but basically when you get poisoned. It's hermatasis. Hermatasis.
Hermatosis?
I'm quoting from Wikipedia here, so I should say. But he refused to get medical attention, although he remained in pain. And he was urged by everybody to seek medical attention.
But I'm guessing he did not.
Yeah, one eyewitness claimed that Hensley attributed his suffering to the congregation's lack of faith.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. You all did this to me, as he's dying on stage.
You didn't believe hard enough.
Which, again, I've seen that very similar type of bombing at an open mic where the comedian's not doing well. Starts to blame the audience.
It's all cancel culture.
As you left there like twitching from death of a snake bite.
Wow. The snake is trying to cancel me.
Although his wife, Sally, his fourth wife, he got divorced in the meantime and remarried again, stated that she believed it was the will of God, which is a great way to get out of a marriage.
Oh my God.
Just watching your husband die, just like, it's what God wants. It's what God wants.
I can't help him. There's nothing I can do. God wants this.
Hensley died early the next morning. The Calhoun County judge, Hannah Gadskin, which cool, woman judge in like 1940. That sounds great. Or no, Hannah's a male. It probably wasn't a woman. I don't know. I'm sorry. I should have said
I don't know. No.
I was just trying to make some.
We don't know the gender of the judge.
I was just trying to make some happy news. Ruled his death a suicide.
Yeah.
And that is the story of that people were doing this before, but a lot of people say he's the founder of snake handling. George went Hensley. And I do want to say one thing, as much as we laugh about this, people really believe this. And Jamie Coots, the person whose arm decayed, did get bit by a snake and pass away during one of his services. His son still continues it. And it's very easy to make fun of. I do want to take a little bit of time to say it's very sad that Jamie Coots passed away. And this is part of these people's cultures. And there is a real belief around this. And so I don't know what the balance between religion and respecting people's religion. And for me, it's when you start getting other people killed and gaslighting them like George Wendt Hensley does. Yeah. And to me, this whole type of preaching kind of has that whole element to it of, we're going to take up snakes. The people at the church, and churches are such communal exercises. I imagine there's a lot of social pressure that goes around into it. So it's a very sad thing, but also a very buck wild thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well said.
Yeah. They're refusing to get medical help, or the like encouraging of other people to refuse to get medical help is what puts it over the line for me. Like you were saying, of like, I don't want to demean people's beliefs or anything like that, but also you can't go around endorsing people get bit by snakes and not do anything about it.
And if you're at like one of these services and they're essentially arguing that if you're religious enough, you won't die from this, or it's your time. So it just feels very manipulative to me.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, it's got that ring of a cult, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Although one person in one of the interviews, one person says, "We're not a cult, we're Christians," which makes you think.
Mm-hmm. It's a real interesting quote.
You said one of his sons took over. Like, do you know if this is a current thing at all?
So when I said one of his sons, Jamie Coots died in 2013, and his son, I believe, still continues to do it. There are videos of this. You can literally watch people holding snakes, rolling on the ground, dancing to the music, shaking around. Even just Googling this, you'll see the people doing it. It is illegal because there's a lot of restrictions around holding venomous snakes in public areas.
Why?
As there should be.
They view it as a battle between church and state, though. They would say that they're infringing upon their religious right.
I can see that, because I feel like America is the country where if you would like to roll around on the ground with poisonous snakes like that, maybe you're right. But I also feel like for public protection, like you were saying, it's good that we have laws against just running into somewhere with a bunch of poisonous snakes being like, "Everybody, have you heard about God?"
And you do get the vibe from the game wardens that like have to go and deal with this, or the wardens that have to deal with it. It's like, oh God, it's the snake people again.
Shit, gotta go clean up some dead snakes again.
Oh, it's old Johnny Two Snakes, and he's out there causing trouble.
They're up there drinking their Agatha Christie poison and lighting themselves on fire. Just how do you talk to somebody like that?
Yeah, what did the poison have to do with it?
It was like directly from that fucking Bible verse. Like literally the performance you were talking about, how like you can hold snakes, they'll bite you, you'll be fine. You'll drink poison and you'll be fine. That was literally like the act that you told us. They literally just took that Bible verse and was like, well, this my act.
Yeah, it's like, I really do feel like they're the Carrot Tops of the preacher world.
Or the Gallaghers.
Yeah, the snake biting is the smashing of the watermelon, if you will.
Yeah.
That is all. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry if it went on too long.
No, I loved that. That was insane. I feel like I had heard about that in the most brief terms, but like to learn about that was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that.
At this moment in the program, John's video shut off. Whoa, no,
Bye.
come back. No, come back.
Okay, bye everyone.
No.
All right, eat shit, everybody. Have a good night. Fuck
No,
you
it's
all.
not fucking over. No, get back here. Sit the fuck down. This podcast is not over because I have a story to tell. And I'm gonna, you know what? You brought some local history from your home. I'm bringing some local history from my home. I'm just gonna jump right in. I don't want to tell you what this is about. but I'll quickly list my sources. An article from Smithsonian Mag, an article from howstuffworks.com, npr.org, and 2 from Wikipedia. Okay. So I'm from California, and this is a story about the San Francisco Bay Area. So the discovery of gold at Sutter's Mill in 1848 was kind of the catalyst to one of the biggest migrations in American history. Between 1848 and 1855, around 300,000 gold hunting hopefuls came to the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco was one of the fastest growing cities in the world at the time. Within 2 years of the discovery of gold, San Francisco's population had blossomed from 800 to over 20,000. So if you think about that, that's insane. I read in an article that to create like buildings and bars and things like that, people would come in ships and kind of run the ships aground in the bay, and then those would become like saloons and brothels and things like that. So you would just go to the ship over there, and there's a little bit of water in the bottom, but hey, you could get a nice stiff drink. So like I said, the city was filled with casinos and campgrounds and brothels and way more miners than the agricultural infrastructure could support.
For some reason, when you said miners, I just pictured a bunch of under 18 kids like partying in these fucking run ashore boats.
It's a fuck ton of gold panning teens, and they're out here vaping and causing trouble.
And they don't play by your rules.
No, they don't, principal. They're gonna prank you. But this caused a lot of problems for farmers, because farmers were having a really hard time coming up with enough food to feed all of these miners that were coming into the city, because they needed protein-rich food to have a lot of energy to go, do mining for gold, which is pretty hard, backbreaking work. So the prices of food skyrocketed. And this is a quote from Ava Christhan? I don't know. But she is the author of Garibaldi and the Fair Lawn Egg War. And she said, quote, "It was a protein-hungry town, but there was nothing to eat. They didn't have the infrastructure to feed all the hungry male workers. So this resulted in the price of chicken eggs becoming up to $1 an egg, which in today's money would be about $30 for an egg."
No.
Oh.
Ouchie, hachi machi. That's an expensive dozen.
Yikes. Yeah, that sucks.
Those beefy boys weren't getting their protein shakes.
They weren't getting their protein, and things were getting pretty bad, because grocery stores started placing egg wanted ads in newspapers. In an 1857 advertisement in the Sonoma County Journal, it read, quote, "Wanted, butter and eggs for which the highest price will be paid."
It's just gonna be my Tinder bio now. Eggs wanted.
Eggs wanted, highest prices paid. Ew. Ew, John, no.
Scratch that. Don't change your Tinder profile at all.
Okay, so meanwhile, by the time the California gold rush had brought in all of these hungry miners, there was an island about 30 miles off the coast of San Francisco that was home to murres, which are a kind of bird. They numbered in the tens of millions, and their eggs were ripe for the picking.
So sorry, was this island Alcatraz?
No, this is not Alcatraz. This is the Fair Lawn Islands.
Fine.
So entrepreneurs started looking for eggs on these Fair Lawn Islands, and they're a group of islands and sea stacks in the Gulf of the Fair Lawns, which is off the coast of San Francisco. The islands are sometimes referred to by mariners as the Devil's Teeth Islands, in reference to how treacherous it is. The islands are about 30 miles away from the Golden Gate and about 20 miles away from Point Reyes. They're
Wait,
completely...
the Golden Gate Bridge wasn't built at this time, though, right? Sorry, that was stupid. That's a stupid question. I just picture that like all these ships run ashore by this beautiful bridge.
I think that is a modern measurement. I'm not sure when the Golden Gate Bridge was built.
Not during the gold rush.
No. Way later. Hello, it's future Sophie. Construction on the Golden Gate Bridge started in 1933. Okay, so the coastal Miwok tribe called them the Islands of Death. They were surrounded by great white sharks and sea lions and incredibly choppy surf. This is a quote from Susan Casey, who's the author of The Devil's Teeth, a true story of obsession and survival among America's great white sharks. Quote, "I cannot overstate the dangers of that place and how hostile it is to human life. It is a place where every animal thrives because it is the wildest of the wild, but it's a tough place for humans."
Oh no.
And that's where they're getting their eggs from?
Yes. This is where people are going to intend to get their eggs, is from this fucking island. Because the Farallon Islands harbored the largest seabird rookery in the contiguous United States. And I wrote, and therefore we're fucking filthy with protein-rich eggs.
I just imagine them shipping in. I imagine them shipping in these eggs and just picturing the customers in my grocery store. Well, were they free range though? Were these chickens having a good life?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about how the eggs were acquired. So in 1849, a capitalist pharmacist named Doc Robinson had a plan to profit off of the egg shortage. Because, of course, this is America. We see a problem. That's an opportunity to make money. He and his brother-in-law sailed to the Farallones and began stealing all the eggs from the nesting grounds. And even though they lost about half of their haul on their way back to San Francisco because of those rough and choppy waves, the pair were able to make about $3,000 from the sale of the remaining eggs. And after barely surviving the trip, the men swore they would never return. But that was completely false. So they made enough money to found the Pacific Egg Company, who are kind of the big bads in this story. So the Pacific Egg Company is formed and they start going out to the Farallones to get these eggs. But to reach these nesting grounds, the eggers had to scramble over bird shit slicked rocks, scale sheer cliffs, fend off clouds of seagulls, and they had to make homemade crampons fashioned from ropes and rusty nails to climb up the sides of the rocks.
It's not worth it, y'all.
But it was at the time.
The best part about this is to get the eggs, they had to scramble.
I heard that too. I was like, yeah, they have to scramble the eggs too, I bet.
Yeah, well, speaking of people who got scrambled.
Oh no.
In 1858, it was reported that a man who was egging missed his hold while robbing a nest and falling was dashed to pieces on the rocks below.
Oh no.
Dashed to pieces.
Yeah, I got that. Ouch.
So the eggs of the murre, which are the bird that we're talking about, this bird is kind of penguin-y looking. It's kind of a cross between a seagull and a penguin. And they were the most kind of sought after. They look very weird. They're blue speckled and they're kind of pointy and pear-shaped. And they're about twice the size of chicken eggs. But when you fry them, the white stays like clear and jello-y and the yolk is like reddish. And they have like a weird fishy taste to them.
So you do all this work and it's not even a good egg?
I mean, it's the best that they had at the moment. They were having a hard time. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So in 1851, 6 men who formed the Pacific Egg Company claimed exclusive rights to the Farallon Islands. They were like, okay, these islands belong to us. No one else can egg here. No one else can come and get eggs here. And so in May was when the birds would first begin to come and like lay the eggs. The egg company would send between 10 and 30 men, mostly Italian and Greek immigrants, to go get these eggs in these tiny little rowboats. And I read that there were no shores on these islands, just like sheer cliffs. So like there's no parking your boat here. You just have to either like get on or get off. Like, so individual eggers collected from certain areas. And then this is what I really hate. So prior to collecting the eggs, like the first egging of the season, they would go through and smash all the eggs that were already there because they only wanted fresh eggs. So it would smash up all the old eggs. So that was incredibly detrimental to the population of these birds.
Yeah, what? Like, you are eating nasty eggs anyway. So who cares if they've been there a little bit?
I listened to an episode of The Dollop on this, and apparently they were saying that these eggs, if they got kind of old or if they were from an older season, were like dank and not in a good way, like really bad. So but it's still horrible that they are out here smashing the eggs of these defenseless birds. So by the early 1860s, the Pacific Egg Company had a lot of competition, but its hold on the islands was really tentative because there were a lot of rival egg gangs.
This does sound like it's being run by a bunch of teenagers, right? You're saying the word minors, they're going out egging, they're rival minor egging gangs.
Yeah. Yeah, there were groups of Italian fishermen who were apparently granted access to the islands by the United States topographical engineers, which I don't know how legit their land claiming powers are. But the 8 weeks between May and June devolved into, quote, an annual naval engagement known as the Egg War.
Yes.
So the Egg War! Get your special egg sacks, which they did have, and your special egg shirts that have a lot of pockets in them, which they did have. We're going to an egg war. So brawls broke out constantly between rival egg gangs, and the brutality of these fights ranged from threats and some light shell throwing to stabbings and shootouts.
Oh my God.
Just like high school, baby. Just like high school.
Just like my last open mic set.
Hey.
Who am I? No, I'm just giving you shit.
Yeah, in 1860, police officers discovered 2 parties that were armed to the teeth in possession of different parts of the island, getting ready to fight each other.
And they're all just like competing to just throw the eggs on the ground because they're too dank this time of year.
These eggs are nasty, but I won't let you have them.
There was probably a lot of egg throwing too, like use what you've got. So just throwing eggs at each other.
Yeah.
Oh, I was actually I know a little bit about this. This is actually how, at the Easter where they put the egg on the spoon and you run across with it in your mouth. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. This isn't how this was made.
But
you had me going though.
Yeah, well, John's kind of onto something because the transportation of the eggs, you weren't fucking done if you survived the egg island, because they would pirate each other's egg boats. Like in the bay, people would lie in wait to see boats coming from the Farallon Islands, and they'd hijack them and they'd be like, look, boys, we know what you got on board. Give us your fucking eggs.
We don't want your money. We want your eggs.
We want your eggs.
You don't have any money.
Yeah. And I thought this was funny that the San Francisco courts were backed up with a variety of egg-related cases that included charges of petty larceny, trespassing, property damage, resisting arrest, and manslaughter.
Oh my God.
That means there were
eggs.
So there had to be egg lawyers specializing in egg law.
I would be Sophie Schwartz, egg lawyer, attorney at law. If that was my time. I'd be like, bring your egg. Have you been injured in an egg-related incident? Call Sophie Schwartz, egg lawyer at law.
There you go.
Okay, so another problem was arising for our egg friends. They're fighting each other. They're having a great time. They're throwing shells, getting eggs. But at the same time, the US government wants to build a lighthouse on the Farallon Islands. And this sucks because the egg people would not be able to egg if there was a lighthouse on the island. Because the lighthouse and the foghorns would probably scare away a lot of birds, and the birds make the eggs. So there was a lot of conflict between the government and the eggers about who owned this island, because President James Buchanan had solidified the federal government's own claim to the island for the lighthouse. But things really kind of came to a head on June 3rd of 1863. 3 boatloads of heavily armed Italian fishermen came to the island, and they had a cannon with them. They weren't fucking around. And they attempted to land on the islands, but the egg company foreman was like, no, you can't come on the islands. Fuck you guys, you suck. And the people who were trying to land were like, you know what? Fuck you guys. And both parties spend the whole night drinking, because that's what you should do. And then in the morning, they try to make a landing again. But the egg company boys also have been up all night drinking. And so they open fire on these guys. And God. The fishermen fire back with their cannon. One of the egg company men was killed after being shot through the stomach and the heart. The egg company men fired on and wounded 5 of the men in the boats. And after 20 minutes of war, the men in the boats sailed home.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but one of them was shot through the throat and died a couple of days later.
Oh, what a way to go. Imagine being the wife of that person or the husband and just getting that, like, well, they've died in the egg wars. And the person's like, what are the egg wars?
A guy comes to your door. He knocks on the door. You open it up. It's a guy in a giant egg costume with like medals on it. And he gives you the thing and he says, I'm so sorry, ma'am. You're an egg widow now.
And the widow's like, it's not a Humpty Dumpty, is it? It's a Humpty Dumpty.
It's a Humpty Dumpty. He got dashed to pieces. But so the endless fighting on the island threatened the lighthouse operations. But the federal government was like, no, we don't give a shit. They made little effort to kick the eggers out. But after this big battle, if you can really even call it that, the government kind of went into action. But rather than banning egging altogether, they granted the Pacific Egg Company a monopoly over egging in the area, because that'll totally fix everything, right?
Wow.
It didn't. There was still violence on the Farallones over egging, but finally the federal government ruled that all commercial eggers have to get off the islands, and that any egging that was to be done was only to be done by the lighthouse operators to feed themselves. And then in 1896, the California Academy of Sciences successfully lobbied for egging to be banned completely on the Farallon Islands. And then in the 1960s, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service began managing the islands and protecting the area as a Murre breeding ground. But the consequences of this egg war, the environmental consequences, are still like felt today. The stealing of eggs had caused the Murre population to decline year after year, dropping from 400,000 to 6,000. And in the 1850s, about 500,000 eggs were gathered each year. So each of that is a tiny bird. But how did this whole thing end? Why did this whole thing stop? Well, chickens finally got established in Petaluma, and that put an end to the Murre egg industry. And like I said, now the islands are protected wildlife sanctuary, but they continue to be known as one of the most dangerous and treacherous places to sail and inhospitable to us humans. So that was the Egg Wars.
Wow.
Egg Wars.
And
wow.
I read something crazy that these Egg Wars, this all was going on a few weeks before fucking Gettysburg. Like, to put it in context, people were bashing each other in the head with eggs while the Civil War was happening.
Oh my God.
It does feel like what's wild about this story to me is that there's an egg war going on. Everybody knows that people are getting violent and dying, and the government's like, instead of stopping this, we're just going to get involved. We're going to send our own warships in. And then the solution of just getting chickens involved, why didn't they just do that earlier? If the government can send a warship all the way over to fight a war, no one can get chickens?
I think the thing was that I read that it was hard to cultivate chickens in California. They like just couldn't figure it out. I think it was because they hadn't figured out like the kind of like free ranging system or something like that. They just didn't know how to farm chickens in California. And so all the farmers were like, we're fucked. We have to figure out different ways. And they did, but it wasn't great. But it resulted in an egg war.
Wow.
It makes me really value chickens. I love chickens now. Otherwise, it's pure egg anarchy. Eggnarchy.
That story made me hungry for egg.
Yeah, it was really extreme.
Oh, wow.
Excellent story.
Oh, thank you.
Well, John, I have 2 questions for you. 1, do you want to plug anything? And 2, what's your favorite bone?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok. Ollie on that is something I do occasionally. It's fun. I think I have a show coming up in July that I'm working on the working title. An American theater company presents A Christmas Carol in order to make money. So come see that if it happens. I hope it does. That's in July. And you can follow me at Instagram as vintage_JMG. And my favorite bone is the heart.
You know what? I'm going to let it stand. Your favorite bone is the heart. 206 bones and your favorite bone's the heart. Got it.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. Like, I was expecting any other answer.
Any other bone, really.
Any bone at all. Okay,
any bone at all. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, John. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. You all do such a good job. It was an honor to be a part of it in any small way. I had a blast.
Thanks. Come back anytime.
Yeah. And for you boneheads listening, if you enjoyed the show, maybe take a moment to write us a little review if you liked it. Say something you like about the show. Maybe give us some 5 stars if you're feeling generous, or 3 stars if that's what we deserve. I guess that's all right.
No, give us 5.
No, 5. Give us 5. And thanks for listening. We hate to shuffle you out into the cold on a night like this. Here's your coat, stranger. We'll get you out into the cold. And there's really one last thing we want to say to you. Bon voyage.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
Snake can't fart.